What's up everyone, it's David here from Tough Guys TV. On this episode, we're gonna be building a new loft style bed for my daughter. I'll put a picture up here to show how it's gonna look. We got the plans from Anna White DIY online. I'll put a link in the description below so that you guys can try this build for yourself if you want to. Overall, it's pretty easy. We built the same bed a few years ago for my son. My daughter's a little older now and she really loves it, so we're building it for her. I'm gonna be using a Massca Tools pocket hole jig. This thing is really, really cool. It's solid aluminum. I'll put a link to this down in the description as well. So if you like to pick one of those up, you'll see us using it throughout this build. It's pretty much the only tool that you need to have other than a screw gun and some 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. And that's it. I'm gonna use a sander to sand the wood down, and it's really overall pretty easy. So links to social media, check us out if you want to see more of what we do and help support what we do. And thanks so much, let's get started. Here's a quick overview of that Massca pocket hole jig. Just wanted to show it fully assembled. Again, link in the description for this guy, and we have a full video on this unit here on the channel, so check that out as well. Here's the pocket hole screw kit that actually Massca does sell, and we're gonna be using the 2.5-inch screws today. And here's my skill drill driver and cordless orbital sander. You'll see these in the video today as well. I'm gonna be using this one quite a bit here to get the boards prepped, and then this for making all the holes and putting everything together. And then here's the last thing that we use that's a little bit off from the plans. I do use these screws to attach a couple components. These are gonna be hidden, but I wanted to show what it is that we're gonna be using. Here you go. Now, as far as the plans go, they have a really nice list of material that you need to buy at the store. And they also have a really great cut list. So this giant cut list is what we're gonna start with today. I'm gonna get all that stuff done and then show you guys the cuts once they're finished. I'm not gonna do each one individually, just follow your instructions depending on how you're gonna be building this bed. We've got our 2x4s, and one of these we'll be ripping down to create the two 2x2s that we need. And then over here, they didn't have a 1x2 that I was happy with, so I got a 1x3, and then we've got our 2x6s. Overall, that's the bulk of the lumber. And then lastly, we've got a piece of plywood here. This is gonna be used in replacement of the slats that they call for underneath the mattress. I used plywood last time, and I was really happy with how it turned out. All right, everybody, quick update. I've got pretty much all of the 2x4s cut. I will need to take one of these and rip it down to be a 2x2. And that's something that I'll do on the table saw. I'll show you guys that here in a second. But I've got all the other 2x4 pieces cut. Now, one important thing is the 2x6s and the 2x4s, there's a few extra called out for on these plans where you have like a staircase. And the way we modified this set of plans for us is we just do like a straight, like kind of like a ladder for them to climb up on the front of it. So I actually don't build that staircase part. So again, when you're looking at my final product, I don't have that little staircase part that's on the front of it. I'll show a picture so you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so I've got the 2x6s ready. That's the last thing I've got to do is cut a couple of these down. Then it's going to be sanding and prepping before we move on to looking at actually assembling each stage. For this next part, I need to take one of the 2x4s and rip it down to be a 2x2. So I have one of these squares here, and I've got it set at 1 3/4 inches. I like to go ahead and mark a pencil line. I could just set the table saw up to do the cut, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark a line here all the way down the 2x4 so that I know that I stay right on center as I'm making the cut. Cuts are finally done. 2x6s are over here. And now the next step is I gotta get everything sanded down so I can start the assembly process. All right, everybody, we got the sanding part done, and I used my Skill cordless orbital sander for that. Thing is pretty awesome. If you don't have a sander like that already, I definitely recommend checking it out. And the next step is I'm gonna test some of the stain. So let me show you that really fast. All right, so here is the stain. It doesn't really look like much, but it's a kind of like a pearly white finish, and the wood is already such a white color that this stain just doesn't show up like thick. You know, it's not supposed to be like paint. We wanted it to just look just kind of pearly. Oh, and then I actually just got some on my hands when I touched that can there. But anyway, so that's what that looks like. This was a gray color that we tested as well. I think it was called like weathered gray, and we just did not like it as much. So we're gonna go with that pearly white look. So the next step is gonna be staining. I'm not gonna detail too much with this. We wear gloves, should have those on already. And we use little cut up pieces of sponge to apply our stain, and then I normally have like a shop rag to wipe it down. So this stain on all this wood is the next step for us before we start assembling. So we are back. It's been a couple days for me, instantaneous for you. All this wood is done and all this wood is stained, and I did some sanding just briefly, a little sanding pad, 120 grit, just to get it ready for the assembly process. So I chose to do my staining first. I like to do that. I can always touch it up if I need to. The next step is to start the assembly process, which is gonna be the part where I'm gonna spend the most time on detail. And we're gonna be using the Massca Tools pocket hole jig here for that. And one quick note before we start using the pocket hole jig, I wanna make a recommendation. Take a block of wood for whatever size it is that you're using. This is just a block from a 2x4, and set up the jig to use it with something like this and test, drill some holes. That way you know what you're getting into before you start messing with your finished pieces. All right, here on the front, you can see some markings. These loosen and tighten, and this lets you set your depth for the thickness of the wood. If it's a 2x, it's 1.5 inches. So you wanna go ahead and set that where it needs to go. Secondly, here you have some thicknesses for the wood as well, and this is so that when you lock this down and it's holding your piece to the machine, you wanna have that set correctly. So if you look here, you set your board, it's right at 1.5 inches because that's the thickness that we're dealing with. Now that we've got this set like we want it to be, the next step is to get the drill bit set for where we want it as well. So you've got a little Allen wrench here. We're gonna unscrew that so that this is loose. Loosen that up. And then also in your package, you'll have this little wheel, and this shows you how to set the depth. So again, 1.5 inches is what we're trying to do. Goes in this little hole there. Take your drill bit, feed it through, and it's gonna sit where you want it to go. With that sitting down here at the bottom, we can take the locking ring and lock it in place. And one quick note here on my setup, this is just a little wood piece that I put on the back of one of my workstations, on the side rather. And I have a spot here to put all my components when I'm not using them. And this thing took, just a few minutes to make. It wasn't anything special, but it gives me a spot to save my Allen wrenches in the back. As you can see right there, both. And then I made a little spot to put my drill bit as well. And then this thing locks in the back. And the last step here is we're gonna do a test with that scrap piece of 2x4. I've got my Skill cordless driver here, and I wanna have this set for drilling. And one last thing for me is they do have a vacuum attachment, and I'm gonna go ahead and hook mine back up now. And there we go. The two holes look really good. If you could see down inside there or not, it didn't come through this way, didn't come through that way. Everything looks clean and everything looks ready to go. Step one, we're gonna start with building the ends. This is one of the ends of the bed, like bed goes this way. right, I've got these pieces laid out here just to kind of dry fit, and I've went ahead and marked where it calls to space them out. I believe this is at 34, 40 and a half, and then at 47, 1, 2, 3. And now we can kind of dry fit before we start actually attaching everything. And here's the glue we're gonna be using. This is just Type Bond Original. Overview looks really nice, clean, tight joints, and that color is starting to look really good. Almost forgot to show the inside. I think these turned out really good. I'm not gonna be plugging these and filling them in. I just don't care. It's a bed for my kids. This is not something that I'm gonna be concerned about. I think they look pretty good though. Step 1 is now complete. On to step 2, we need to build the other side, basically matches, although they do add a lower support here. And in that first run of boards, I went ahead and already pre-drilled these as well, that are gonna be for here. And then again over here, same setup, just a piece of plywood on the sawhorses to give me some support. All right, and this piece came together really, really well. We got that support down on the bottom, and you can see we're doing the 3 holes in each end of the 2x6 and then 2 in each end of the 2x4. Now for step 3, they want you to basically assemble these into the sides. I want to be able to take this apart a little bit more easily. So I'm gonna make one design change to this here, which I wanted to take a second to share. I'm gonna add a support on either end, basically like this, so that I can build and assemble each side with the 3 rungs and this 2x2 cleat. And I can carry that inside and then screw it all together to where I can take this side and this side off in one piece, so I'm not attaching each individual piece. All right, everybody, we are ready for step 3, which is to build the side rails. Just like I was talking about, I am gonna add a couple of extra supports, and I've got those made. As you guys saw, these are those little pieces. They're gonna go on the face. You'll see that as I put it together. I'm gonna kind of jump through this next part. I've got to put the pocket holes into the side rails so that I can have them prepped and ready to go. And then I'll show you guys as I start putting them together. I went ahead and moved my workstation over so that I have more room for these tall boards. I didn't want to have to take this off and like clamp it down. I should have enough room to just stand them up here in the shop. And over here, I've got everything laid out. I do want to show this 2x2 cleat that I cut. You can see I did my pocket holes kind of up on one side on these 2x6s so that I'd have room to place this down the bottom. And this is the part that's gonna have that piece of plywood on it. So this piece right here, I'm going to pre-drill, and I'm also gonna glue this. And I'm gonna put screws about every 6 to 8 inches all the way down this thing. And these are those 2.5 inch screws that we're gonna be using. And just to show, we're gonna get plenty of meat into that 2x4 underneath, especially if I countersink, which I'm gonna do. both these sides clamped in and drying. I am gonna go ahead and tack these in with the brad nails as well, but I did want to let them sit for a little while with the glue and clamped in place. And I think that this is gonna work out really well as kind of a modification to have these side rails be one piece, as opposed to, like I said, having to carry in each of these individual for both sides and doing 6 attachments. So we're gonna try this out inside and we'll see how it works. Okay, so step 4 and step 5. For that, we need our 37.5 pieces. There's 2 of those left, and then there's 2 30.5s. I'm gonna be putting pocket holes into the 37.5 pieces. So that's these 2 here, pocket holes on both ends, so it can attach into these 2 pieces. Now on step 5, I'm gonna need pocket holes one side of the 20.5, and then both sides of the 41. So this is the 41 here, both sides, and then on one end of each of these. You gonna help?
Yeah.
All right. All right, we wrapped up with this part here, and it looks like they're gonna want to attach and it's not angled like that, I just have it leaning here for a second. They want to attach this side here into the bed structure. So I'm gonna use some of those 2.5-inch screws, and I'll pre-drill these to where when I take this inside, I can just straight drill this in like that. But also, I'm probably not gonna glue this piece so that I can take this apart and take it off when and if we move. I can save this piece here. Now the last part really too is gonna be just putting these top pieces on there, and that's really it. And this thing is all the way done. All right, I've got these all laid out on there. And remember, this is on an angle because I've got it leaned up here. It's not actually like that when it attaches. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just nail these in. I don't really wanna glue them and then just rely on glue to hold them in place. So I've got a 2-inch nailer, and I think I'm just gonna tack them in. I know I'm gonna see the nails, but I really don't want to rely only on glue. And then underneath, we go inside, and I'll be attaching this here to the bed once we take it in. So go ahead and nail this in, take it inside, and start assembly. Now, because I did add the need for these brackets into my build, I went ahead and spray painted the tips of the screws I'm gonna use. These are 1.25 by the way. And then I've spray painted these brackets after sanding them. And then I've got some extra brackets, which I may actually apply, or these are plates actually, to the bottom side underneath the cleats, just to give them some more support. I'm not sure if I'm gonna use those, but I'm definitely gonna use these. So I'm gonna let these dry, and then we'll take them in and start assembling the bed. We've got the pieces brought inside. This is the corner where the bed's gonna go, and these are the brackets. So I've just put a single screw in each one, and I've got them measured off 18.5 down, just like the thickness of that upper section. And we've got one applied at each spot where they're gonna go. I also have them 3/4 of an inch in because that's the thickness of that front little 1x that we put on the front so that everything is smooth with the outside edge. So the next step is we're gonna line these up. That's the front, that's the back, and we're just gonna balance the back rail on so that I can put the pocket screws into it. Hey everybody, don't know if you can see me. I'm underneath that front side. We've got pre-drilled holes on either end, 2.5 inch. I'm gonna be screwing this together. All right, we've got this front part attached here. Now, the last modification that I'm gonna do is I don't actually build those stairs because if you look at this, it takes up so much room already in her room. If I built that staircase out here, it would be like halfway through her room to have that. So what we did in my son's room and in here, I'm just gonna put a couple 2x4s in there, which I'll need to still cut and put in. And I'll show you guys how that looks when it's done, but basically just a ladder. She can climb up, and then I'm gonna add maybe a little handle here if she needs it, but that'll come in the future. And the only other part that's from the plans that we need to do now would be just to cut and fit in the piece of plywood. 2 pieces at 20.5. They're pocket holes in the backside, super easy to put in. And you see my wife's already getting some stuff underneath here. We've got the baby station and the market if you're hungry for a sandwich. So the last piece is I'm gonna cut this piece of plywood and I'm gonna put it in, and then I'm gonna be done and I'm gonna go watch TV. That's satisfying. All right, so that's it. We've got the bed in and looking great. And thank you guys for watching this video. And I hope that it helps you if you try to build this bed. It is comfy and sturdy, as you can see. And now I'm gonna get some rest. Nighty night.